panel discussion. I'm just going to wait for a couple of minutes before we start so that people can join into the session, and then we will begin. All right. I think we are good to start. Firstly, introducing today's discussion topic, which is the constitutional way of protest in India. So, India was born through protest, from Salt March to farmers' movement, from student demonstrations to workers' strikes. Public protest has played an important role in shaping our democracy. But every protest raised the same constitutional questions. Where does the right to protest end? When can the state legally step in? And how do we balance citizens' freedom with public order? Over the next 30 minutes, we'll explore these questions through the Constitution, landmark court judgments, and recent events. From the Bharat Bandh and the farmers' protest to Shaheen Bagh, the wrestlers' protest, and the recent Sonam Wangchuk's march. So, joining me today are distinguished legal experts who will help us understand not just what the law says, but how it works in practice. Joining us today is Advocate Astha Kaushik. Advocate Astha Kaushik is a criminal law practitioner with over 10 years of experience. She specializes in criminal law matters, including IPC, POCSO, NDPS, ITPA, and UAPA, and practices before the district courts and high courts. We then have Advocate Sujit Mashal. He practices before the Bombay High Court, Supreme Court, and courts across Mumbai and Thane. His area of practice includes civil and criminal law, real estate and banking matters, PMLA, family disputes, bail matters, and economic offenses. So, thank you so much, first of all, both of you, to join me today. I'm really glad that you could be here, and that you'd be answering all the questions that we have about protests in India. So the first question that I would like to ask both of you is about the Article 19 of the Constitution that protects freedom of speech, peaceful assembly, and association. So when we talk about the right to protest in India, what exactly does the Constitution protect? Is it only the right to disagreement, or does it also protect the right of citizens to collectively bring attention to issues and demand change? So, any one of you can take this up and start the discussion.
Asa, could you repeat the question? I
Yeah,
think there is
so I
a
was
glitch going on.
sorry.
There is a glitch, I guess, because in between your voice was cut off.
Can you hear me now? Am I audible to you?
Yeah, now you are audible. You were
All
just
right.
audible.
My first question is about Article 19, which protects our freedom of speech and peaceful assembly and association. So when we talk about the right to protest in India, what is our constitution exactly protecting? Is it just our right to express disagreement, or is it also protecting the rights of citizens to bring attention to the issues and demand change of these particular issues?
The Article 19 is about freedom of speech and expression, which also includes other rights.
Yeah.
So there is no specific right to protest as such, but right to protest has been governed by one of the features of Article 19. Now, if you want to see how Article 19 has been emphasized in the Constitution and now how we apply it, how the government applies it, how the state applies it, if that needs to be looked into, then it comes also with reasonable restrictions. So now, when there is a freedom of speech on one hand, and there is a reasonable restriction on what can be spoken in the manner of expression, how it can be expressed. So there are these reasonable restrictions which fall under the ambit of scrutiny by the state as well as by the judiciary. Now, what is the role of judiciary in this? Role of the judiciary comes into play only when the state has exceeded its scrutiny. Now, this we can further develop into this discussion, but this is the basic borderline of what is Article 19, and then the purpose for Article 19.
Right, right. So, Advocate asked a follow-up question for you would be then, the Constitution also allows reasonable restrictions. So, how does the court decide whether a restriction is necessary and whether it has gone too far? The restrictions that are put by the government.
Well, what I think is whenever you are criticizing any constitutional body, especially, for example, judiciary or any celebrity or politician or anyone for that matter, citizens have the right to put forth their dissent. Okay. For example, let's say there's a judgment by the Supreme Court, and to the general public, it doesn't sound, too much in favor of certain things, or a sect public is not happy with it. They can write articles, people write articles, they write on their blogs, and there are panel discussions and everything, but it has to be in a certain level of decency, public morality. You cannot just go on using abusive language against the judiciary or any politician or anything. You can do whatever you want to do in a peaceful and non-violent way, whether it is verbal or gathering for example, for protesting at Jantar Mantar or any other designated area. That should be done, but in the code of decency. It should not be something which defames someone.
Right, right.
To
Got
add
it.
on to my colleague, see,
Yeah,
whatever dissent is, if somebody wants to dissent, then that dissent should not create any law and order situation. That is number one.
right.
Dissent is not meant to create a situation of chaos, like we see what happened in Bangladesh. Now, even the new government of Bangladesh, or if I rightly put across, the new Bangladesh is also a country which has been born out of a protest. There were students who were protesting, there was Gen Z which was protesting. But then the chaos was to an extent where they not only they overthrew the government, but there were also several acts of crimes which were committed. People were looted, girls, children were raped, and such other heinous crimes which are continuing till now.
Hmm.
Now, whether that ambit, even that is a form of expression, expression of anger, expression of anguish, whatever kind of expression, but that kind of an expression which is creating a law and order situation is prohibited completely, not only by the constitution, but that such a prohibition can be enforced by the state as well as judiciary. The first step is the state. The state can take all reasonable measures to curb any such incident, which itself has become a threat to the citizens of the country.
Right, right. So, talking about a protest or organizing a protest, say, take for example me, an ordinary citizen. I want to, organize a peaceful protest. I'm not a political leader. I'm not associated with any organization as such. Um, so, what does the law require me to do? Am I supposed to take permission? Do I need to inform the local authorities? What is the process that is involved before someone actually decides that they want to, conduct a protest against a particular issue that they may have?
See, there are two things here. Now, there are various rulings of the Supreme Court which also say that you cannot indefinitely block a public road or any access or any place which is accessible by the general public at large.
Yeah.
Now, there are two things which needs to be balanced here. On one hand, the right to protest or right to dissent,
Hmm.
which is a integrated democratic right, which can be exercised by every citizens of India. And for only mere exercising of that kind of a right, no citizen can be punished. This is
Correct.
very clear. Now, building upon this, what now there is also the same citizens also enjoy the right to move freely everywhere. Now, such movement cannot be curbed in the name of protest. Therefore, the protesters, even if they want to protest against something,
Hmm.
must choose a particular place which has been designated for carrying out on protest. Every city, every metropolitan city has such places which can be used to make their dissent more and more loud. Such places can be decided, and then the notice should be given to the local police, and those permissions should be obtained. Now, because this is supposed to be a peaceful protest,
Yeah.
there has to be a reasonable police scrutiny and security to ensure that the protest remains peaceful throughout. Now, nobody come and say that, I don't want to conduct protest peacefully. That is, of course, that falls under the curbs of the Article 19,
Correct, correct.
the manner of expression of your rights.
Yeah, yeah. So, does that mean that, say if I go to take permission from the police, and say if they deny me that permission, um, can that happen? If the police, can they legally deny me the permission to have a protest?
Certainly, the police has the a bigger responsibility towards its citizen.
Yeah,
If we come to a conclusion that a particular site which has been designated for the protest, the protesters do not want to use that site and instead they want to use a site which is different and that may cause severe issues to the public at large.
yeah,
Then, in view of these kind of grounds, such things can be denied by the police. Such permissions can be denied. Use of certain loudspeakers, which can again cause sound pollution if it is in the area of hospitals, schools, colleges, then such things can be curbed. Such a situation can be curbed altogether. Now, nobody can say that I want to protest in the area where there are schools and hospitals. If a site like that is chosen to protest, then the police can definitely decline such a request. Everything has to be reasonable. See, in a democracy, on one hand, we all have the right to elect our representatives. Now, it is these elected representatives who want to. Once you have a elected majority or elected mandate, the same mandate is also further transformed into the legislative mandate. Legislative mandate meaning you have the authority to debate on certain bills or certain laws or regulations and then make it into an act. Now, these are the same public representatives, and it is the same public which is sending them to the parliament to do their jobs. Now, these representatives, they do have their rights to voice their dissent, to voice their opinions, as well as the representatives who are sitting in the parliament. They also must listen to the dissent. Now, between these things, again, the protest has to be accommodated. Now, it is the state's responsibility how they accommodate the protest and how they want to make sure that it is done peacefully. So the state has a bigger responsibility to ensure that the citizens who are not protesting, even their rights are supposed to be handled.
yeah,
The people on one side, if they have a right to protest, then on the other side, people who do not want to protest, even they have their right to liberty, right to their expression, right to their movement. So exercise of one constitutional right cannot curtail exercise of another constitutional right, and it also cannot create a law and order problem. So basically, these things have to be balanced in a democracy. The balance is the key to every answer.
got it. So I now want to move on to talking about like specific examples of protests that we have had in the past. In February 2026, around 300 million workers participated in a nationwide strike against the labor reforms that were introduced. Now, despite this protest and the scale of the protest, these labor codes still remain. Now, my question would be is that what is the relationship between the government's decision making on such policies or on such reforms and a public protest? Advocate Asta, maybe you can take this up. What is the government obligated to consider when such protests happen? What does the law say in this regard?
No, no, absolutely not. The government is not obligated. Nobody can force the government to do what they want to do. And lawmaking is a completely independent process. Okay, so when to pass a legislation would do it, and if they find it absolutely unnecessary they won't. So it's all about the negotiation, the terms which they put the protesters and the government. If the government feels that the points which they are putting forth and in the larger interest of the public, putting forth such kind of a law is required, passing such bill is required, they'll do. Otherwise, when we have seen in CA protests, whatever they were demanding, the government and many sections of the society also thought or they opined that it was not necessary. The government was telling people that okay, those who are citizens will continue to remain a citizen and your citizenship will not be taken away and all of that. So they did not feel that it was necessary to take off that bill, and they did not. So it's never that you cannot pressurize a sitting government to do what you want them to do. You can always protest, you can always show that we are unhappy. But if, for example, in the recent case, had Mr. Pradhan not resigned, it would have probably gone for whatever long period if they wanted that protest to go on. But he decided, or the government asked him to do that, whatever was the decision that happened. But it could not have happened also. I mean, there is no certainty in such cases whether government will listen to you or not, or the demand of the public. No, because they have to, as Sir said rightly, that they have to look into the larger interests of the society. There is a section of public which might not even agree with the dissenters. Okay, what about them? So you cannot force a government to make them. Absolutely not.
Got it. Got it. Um, talk since you mentioned the recent protest and the hunger strike that Sonam Wangchuk did. Hunger strikes, peaceful hunger strikes, have been in have had a long history in our country, and the current also hunger strike also brought attention to peaceful protest methods. So I just wanted to know, is there any specific way in which the law treats hunger strikes, or is it treated in a similar manner of how any other protest would be treated?
See, you cannot force someone to end their hunger strike. You can only request them.
Yeah.
Also, going on hunger strike makes a different kind of, it creates a different kind of pressure. An empathy factor comes in because a person might die. Okay, that angle is always there.
Yeah.
And there is only one person or more than one person, whatever, who's going on the hunger strike. So the government looks into their well-being, they try to negotiate. So for example, in the recent case, we saw that the government did provide them facilities, hospitalization and everything. So that is there, and I don't think it is considered in a different way. It's just that if I go on hunger strike, let's say, I am not creating any law and order problem sitting at my home and not eating anything, or being hospitalized and not eating anything. I am only putting a mental pressure on the government to look into what I am trying to focus on. So I would just say that if there is a normal strike or protest and lots of people are there and government is trying to control the mob by using water cannons and lathi charge and all of that, that factor is not here. In that sense, it can be, you can say it's different. But
Right.
other than that, hunger strike is a far more peaceful way of protesting, I would say. The most
Yeah.
peaceful way, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about, since you mentioned Lathi charge, even in the recent protests, there is an ongoing conversation right now about alleged police brutality, and there has been conversation about taking action against that. Um, there have been in the past also in protests, the questions have been raised about police action. So, what I want to understand, what is the role of the police, during a protest? What legal safeguards exist when citizens, and what happens if someone alleges that there has been excessive police action?
Courts are there to look into that. You can always file writ petitions.
Yeah.
You can always complain against the police brutality. That is what is being done also. A special court has been formulated, to see that. And the paper leak thing also, it has been fast tracked by appointing an ASJ. So the writ petitions would be filed, and then the suspension of those police officers would be demanded who have done it. The DCP would be summoned. What you were doing, why you bloody when the protest was peaceful. So courts come into play in such things when police does something in excess. That is there.
Right. Um, so, I also wanted to ask, if there is a allegation against a police officer, uh, does the investigation remain within the police system? Do they have an internal inquiry first, or does this directly go to courts?
Well, depends upon who they have, on whom the allegation is, the rank of the police officer. If it is
Right.
obviously somebody of SI or inspector rank, then
Yeah.
there are senior officers. There's the DCP. There is the commissioner of police. They would look into a particular police station. First of all, it will be identified from which police station these personnel were, and then who was in charge of that order, whether there was any order in writing or not, who sent them to the place of site, whether they were actually police officials or not. Even
Right.
that, because these days people just pose as police officers and they are actually not even police.
Mm.
So that also has to be looked into, the thing. But if something has really excessively something has happened, then of course a person who is not even a police officer of the greatest rank, then it will be seen by the courts. Then it will be a thing of the home ministry level, that who ordered such, RAF, rapid action force, or whatever.
See,
Right.
any kinds of police excesses
Hmm.
that needs to be tested with strong evidence based.
Right.
Now, it is very common in these kind of protests that people will cry foul.
Right.
The protesters will say that there is a police excess. The the police will say that the protesters have crossed their barriers.
Yeah.
So now, when these allegations and cross allegations persist, there are CCTV cameras today. We are in a generation where there is AI everywhere, which is helping. These are the CCTV cameras which can trace the vehicle numbers to their owners, even the face recognition systems. Through those things, there can be identification, that can be done to see whether the police has indeed crossed their barriers or
Yeah.
whether the citizens have indeed breached the conditions of their protest. But altogether, it is very important and necessary to maintain the law and order. As I said, right to protest is on one side, and the other people who are not wanting to protest, protesting their right, is equally more important.
Correct.
So
Correct.
the balance has to be there. And in case of any kind of police access, then there are remedies. There can be an inquiry initiated against the police. It can be a court monitoring inquiry also, just to neutralize the checks and balances. Because the argument also further arises that if the police are the one to commit excess, then who is going to investigate them? Whether
Yeah.
it will be a partial inquiry, impartial inquiry, then these are the reasonable doubts whether the
Correct.
justice is actually being done or not done. But to ensure that, then there are courts who can also appoint someone to monitor, and it can be a judicial inquiry or it can be an SIT monitored by an totally independent organization. So these are the checks and balances which prevail. As
Got it.
my colleague has rightly pointed out about the writ petitions and all, again, those are other further remedies. If somebody is detained, if
Hmm.
somebody is detained, somebody went missing, but then there is a suspicion that he or she must have been taken into the police custody, then obviously the courts are there and under the remedies of Article 226, and the Supreme Court is there under Article 232. They can exercise this jurisdiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, talking about restrictions, in the past or even in this protest, we have seen that there was an internet shutdown as well. A lot of these days, a lot of information is also shared via the internet. Um, the Supreme Court in the past has held at the internet restrictions, when they happen, must be necessary and proportionate. So I want to know, what exactly does the law say about internet shutdowns, and when is it appropriate to do so? Even in a situation of a protest, when is it appropriate for the government to decide that they are going to shut
In
down internet
2020,
access?
via Anuradha Bhasin versus
Yeah,
Union of India, now,
yeah,
this is a leading constitutional authority, the precedent set by the Supreme Court. Couple of the key features I would just want you to note down
yeah,
for the viewers as well as for everybody. So, Supreme Court in that decision held that freedom of speech through internet enjoys a constitutional protection. It is during those protests when the farmers' protest, labor law, Shaheen Bagh, all these things which were happening, right when the protest rocked India in 2020, the immediate response was to curb any kind of unwanted news which can spread panic, or any kind of fake news which can spread panic or which can further fuel any kind of violence. As a precautionary measure, there was a shutdown of
mm,
internet. Now this, all we are seeing these things now when there are these protests which have been rocking Delhi from 2020. But this mechanism was existence in Jammu Kashmir, in far areas of Assam and all, to curb any kind of terrorism activities. So on one hand, constitution has guaranteed that there cannot be any kind of shutdown, which again, this also falls under the essential services. Now we are living in the technological era, so internet falls definitely under that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it cannot be, there cannot be a blanket shutdown. That's what this particular judgment talks about. Then further, there are these uh, the constitution as such does not prohibit as well. On one hand, this decision talks about internets cannot be shut down, but then there are further guidelines under what circumstances can it be done. So nothing, there is no blanket cover up to this question, nor there is a blanket go ahead to this question.
Got it.
Again,
So
it comes under the modalities of what is reasonable in that situation, whether a particular measure can be adopted to ensure that whatever protest is going on, whatever dissent is being raised,
yeah.
it remains under those boundaries of not causing any nuisance and becoming a law and order situation.
Right, right. Do such like see if I am a citizen who has been affected by such an internet shutdown, do I have any remedies through which I can, seek any sort of legal intervention into this, or this is not something that comes under the purview?
See, if you are in a situation where everything else is peaceful,
Yeah.
now this particular question also falls in the domain of whether there is any police access.
Hmm.
If any, if the state has tried to curb certain fundamental rights of yours.
Yeah.
Now, how do we judge whether such thing has happened or not? It depends on the facts and situations. It depends totally on the circumstances. If you are in an area which has been affected by a terrorist attack, say for example,
Yeah.
now you may have remained unaffected, but for the larger welfare of the state and for the larger welfare of the public, if such a shutdown has been imposed, then you must comply with that. It is
Yeah.
in the national interest, it is in your own interest. Then the national, your so-called rights under Article 19, again the expression and all, it cannot exceed the national interest. It cannot exceed all the cumulative rights of all the citizens.
Right. 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 Um, So, according to you, do you think internet shutdown decisions should require any prior judicial approval, or because it's a situation of an emergency, the government should be allowed to kind of take the decision and call?
So this is already covered by the state, the reforms
Yeah,
and the regulations of the state, what can be done. There are various SOPs, what can be done in a case of emergency strikes or in case of sudden protest which becomes violent. These are the discussions which have been discussed on day-to-day basis in those
right, right,
situations. So this is the best authority to decide what to do in that situation, to manage the situation, is the state. The judiciary will only intervene if it is exceeding. Supposing
right.
if the situation is normal and docile, then there is no need of exceeding to this extent where you want to shut down the news also. Like supposingly the people are doing a peaceful protest. Now the state has started exceeding its authority. Now you don't want, the state doesn't want to show it to the people, and just because to ensure that the news does not spread, they clamp down on the internet. Then
Yeah,
such a thing can be raised. Then such a thing can
right.
be, the judiciary can step in and ensure that the other citizens do not get inconvenienced.
Yeah, got it. Um, so, as we are nearing the end of the discussion, uh, a lot of our changes in our country have followed from public movements, have stemmed from public movements. So my question to both of you would be, is protesting a sign that the democracy is working, because the it gives the citizens, the power to challenge and question the government, or do you think it is a sign that institutions are not responding early enough?
See, the constitution does not ask the citizens to abandon dissent in
Yeah,
democracy, nor does it ask the government to abandon the public order. Now, the balance is an answer to this question.
right. right,
It requires that everything should coexist within a desired framework, and the
right.
framework is constitution. The government should respect the constitution, so should the people respect the constitution. Protest, dissent is again one of the rights guaranteed under the constitution. If anybody is exceeding their authority, for example, the state is exceeding the authority, there are courts which function under the guidance of the constitutional framework.
Hmm.
So this coexistence is very, very important.
Right.
That's the democracy.
Advocate Astha, what would you like to add to that?
I would just say that this is a democracy. Democracy itself means that you have the right to dissent, you have the right to tell the government where they are going wrong. So that's always there. That has always been the case. But uh, we see instances wherein the government takes certain harsh measures which are sort of in excess to what it should do in order to curb the dissenting voices. Sometimes it is out of necessity, sometimes it is just a way to respond to certain antisocial elements also who are taking advantage of genuine protesters. Some, there are many factors, so you cannot just say that in this particular protest this happened and in the other protest also it was on the same lines. So I mean, see, when CA protests were there, then after Delhi riots happened. In this Gen Z protest, nothing like that happened. So it depends from one case to another. That it varies from case to case. What are the demands? How the government reacted to that? How they responded to it? What was the level of police brutality? How many lives were lost? Were there any, or they were not? There are many things. What they are actually demanding? How many people are with them? For example, we saw many celebrities like Shabana Azmi, like Nasiruddin Shah, like some other people from sports fraternity, Deepika Padukone. These people came forward and they supported the Gen Z protest, and they said that yes, the voices of the students must be heard. But
Yeah,
but in other, had it been some other issue, maybe pertaining to others, farmer protest or any other issue, maybe these people would not have intervened in a way, because there was an empathy factor working with the students. They were really young. They that was a Gen Z thing, and they were protesting in a silent manner. So it depends. But one has to see always that there has to be a balance between the voices of a certain group of people and the general public at large, and the dissent and what the government is doing should be in accordance with the principles of natural justice, the rule of law, and the separation of powers. All of that.
right, right. Um, Before I, close today's discussion, is there anything that both of you would like to add to what we've discussed, what has been said?
See, the true strength of democracy is not that there are no disagreements,
Yeah,
or is measured by whether there are disagreements or there are no disagreements, but it is measured by how the disagreements are peacefully resolved with utmost transparency.
right,
So this is the true strength of democracy.
right.
I think this should sum up all that we have discussed so far,
Definitely.
right from the.
And what I would like to just say is that every responsible government should respond in a fair and transparent manner.
Yeah,
Listen to the people, engage with them. Communication is the best way to engage with the protesters instead of trying to use harsh methods. And this time I would just say that government has really acted in a responsible way. They have issued, as the PM issued the video, and after a few days, and then he resigned, the education minister, which was the right step to be done. At least people
right.
felt heard. People felt heard, which is good. If so many people actually think you are responsible, I'm not going into whether he actually was responsible or not. But when the students' fraternity was so much against one person and they really wanted the resignation, they did it. So at least that accountability factor was there somewhere. The government is accountable to people. It's a
Yeah,
democracy. It's not a dictatorship. So a government should, try to resolve it peacefully as much as possible.
right, right. Uh, with that, I would like to end this discussion today, and I would like to thank both of you for being here, for taking part in this discussion. And giving us your insights, giving us knowledge about how protests can happen in a legal manner. What are the rights? What are what is correct? What is not correct? And I feel like today's conversation shows us that the right to protest is not only about being allowed to gather, but it's also about the citizens that should be able to express disagreement, institutes who need to be remain accountable. And like both of you rightly mentioned, there has to be a balance between liberty and public order has to always be maintained. And with that, I would like to end today's discussion. Once again, thank you so much to both of you. Thank you so much to our audience for joining into this session. And I hope to see you all again. And good evening to everyone.
Thanks a lot, Avastha.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Vedit. Thank you. The pleasure all ours, and it was really, great to engage in this lively discussion. Thank you.
Likewise. Likewise. Thank you so much, ma'am.